If you're in your 20s and you feel stressed, feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, and stuck in the corporate machine, and feel like you're constantly behind no matter how much money you make, you are not alone. So many people in their 20s feel like they're stuck and feel like crashing out because of a few financial habits that I'm going to touch on in this video. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to go broke fast in your 20s, step by step. I'm talking about the completely normal, socially accepted behaviors that are quietly destroying people's finances without them even realizing it. And as we get into the video, for every situation that I will consider a financial nuke, I'm also going to explain what to do instead, because every one of these mistakes is something I've seen my friends or other people make, or I've made these mistakes myself. I'm making this video because when I was in my 20s, I wish I would have stumbled upon a video like this one. You know that Interstellar meme where he's like banging through the time portal at his past self, screaming, "No, no, no." That's how I feel seeing young 20-year-olds making these mistakes that I'm going to cover in this video. And also, guys, I started playing Call of Duty World War II, and I forgot how much fun this game was. I think this is potentially the most underrated Call of Duty of all time, and I love how active the servers still are on this game. I feel like this one and Call of Duty Cold War are two great Call of Duties in recent memory that got overlooked. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite Call of Duty was in recent memory. Anyways, I digress, so let's get into the steps needed to go broke in your 20s. So step 1, the fastest way to guarantee that you'll stay broke in your 20s and stunt your ability to build wealth is to have lifestyle inflation. What do I mean by this? It's actually a very simple equation. Money in minus money out equal money left over. It's literally that simple. But do you know what happens to most people in their 20s when they get a taste of that first big paycheck? They go spend the money and think in the short term without having an ounce of delayed gratification. All of a sudden, the cheaper apartment isn't good enough anymore. That paid off car feels embarrassing. And now every raise has suddenly been mentally spent before it even hits your bank account. I've seen people go from saving a few $100s a month to saving nothing at all, not because they make less money, but because their lifestyle quietly expanded and it absorbed every new dollar that they earned. This is usually how it plays out in real life. Someone lands their first decent paying job, maybe goes from making 50 or 60 grand a year to over six figures, and instead of that extra money creating breathing room, it immediately gets spent on upgrading their lifestyle. A higher rent payment, a longer and more expensive car loan, more nights out, more convenience spending. All of this is nothing catastrophic in the present moment, nothing that feels irresponsible, but suddenly the amount that you're saving and investing decreases. And you're losing out on that compounding interest and time in the market while you're young. The more you can invest while you're young, the less you'll have to invest later when you start having kids and you have that family to provide for and that mortgage to pay. On paper, when you start making more money in your 20s, you're quote unquote doing better. But in reality, nothing has changed if you continue to inflate your lifestyle as your earnings go up. You're just more expensive now, and future you is locked in to maintaining this lifestyle, whether you like it or not. This new lifestyle is going to be the norm, and it's going to be much harder to quit living like this if shit hits the fan for you. This is what I call lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the most dangerous traps in your 20s because it feels like you've made it. You look successful, you feel successful, but you're not actually building substantial long-term wealth because your investments are not a top financial priority. So what can you do instead? You can keep your lifestyle boring on purpose for a little longer than it feels comfortable and send the difference to investments. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is where the real wealth accumulation starts. Step 2 on how to go broke. And this one kind of goes hand in hand with lifestyle inflation, but that's financing everything just because you can afford the monthly payment. This is where people stop asking how much something costs and start asking one question only. Can I afford the monthly payment, or can I afford this right now? And technically, yes, you usually can. $400 for a car payment, and you might be like, that doesn't sound too bad. $120 for a phone plan, and that new $1,000 iPhone every year, that might not be that bad. Oh, what about those $100 subscriptions every month? You can start to see how fast these things can add up on you if you're not careful. The problem is none of these payments exist in a silo. They stack on one another and compound. And before you know it, a massive chunk of your income is already eaten up before your month even begins. I've watched people with very high incomes feel completely trapped, and that was me at one point not too long ago, and I had a wake-up call, and I kind of did a purge and reviewed all my insurance plans and my subscriptions. So what can you do instead of this? Well, you can zoom out and look at the total cost of all your bills, not just the monthly number. Ask yourself if this expense still feels worth it, and whether it's competing with your investing and building your financial freedom. Step 3 on how to go broke in your 20s is treating credit cards like they're free money. Credit cards can actually be a really powerful tool if you use them correctly, but in your 20s, this is where a lot of people quietly lose control. It almost never starts with just one big purchase. It's the small stuff that feels harmless. The dinners out during the week because you're tired after work, those weekend trips that go on the credit card because you don't want to miss out and you have FOMO, those random Amazon purchases that don't feel expensive because you're not seeing the money leave your actual account yet. You tell yourself you'll pay all this off in a month, and technically you can. But next month shows up with vengeance, and you instantly get hit with all that rent, the bills I just talked about, the car payment, subscriptions. It's already all waiting for you. So then the month gets started, and you carry a credit card balance after only paying the statement balance, or maybe you pay the minimum payment in certain circumstances. Then that's where the dreadful 20% credit card interest would kick in. When the balance sticks around longer than you planned, this is a real world scenario here that could happen if you don't closely monitor your credit card spending. This happened to me a lot over the last few years. And then when I had my car payment, I'd be like, oh shit, I got a $2,000 credit card balance. I can't pay this off this month. So then I got bit one month because I did the minimum payment. I had to pay crazy interest, and it took another 2 months for me just to get that balance down. And after an instance like that, it was kind of a wake-up call, and I made it clear that I wouldn't carry credit card balance month to month anymore. The worst part is that credit card debt usually doesn't represent anything meaningful months down the road. 6 months later, say you're trying to get that credit card finally paid off, you're still paying for meals that you don't remember, clothes that you might have only worn once, and impulse purchases that gave you a quick hit of dopamine and nothing else. This is how people end up making good money, but still feeling stressed all the time. They're not broke on paper, but mentally they're always behind because part of every paycheck is getting put to either paying off credit card payments or bills. I remember last year when I was stuck in this cycle for months, and sometimes around the holidays this can get really bad for me. You tack on flights, you tack on those Christmas gifts, and it can get out of hand real quick. So what can you do? You can use credit cards wisely and utilize the benefits. If you don't have the cash to pay it off your credit card when the statement hits, that's a signal that you might be stretching your budget too thin. The credit card rewards won't be worth it in the end if you can't pay off your monthly amount. So step 4 to going broke in your 20s is to ignore investing because retirement is something that you'll worry about later. This one is dangerous because it doesn't hurt at all in the short term. In your 20s, retirement feels so far away that it almost doesn't feel real. You might ask yourself, like, why should I put my hard-earned money in an account that I can't even access for another 40 years? And on paper, that kind of sounds dumb because, the saying, you're never promised tomorrow, and you might want to live life to the fullest. You tell yourself that you'll start investing later, when you make more money, when your life will settle down, and when things feel more stable. And that logic makes sense until you zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Skipping investing in your 20s doesn't just delay progress, it permanently reduces what compounding can do for you over your lifetime. I've seen people in their early 30s realize they've missed an entire decade where even small and almost bare minimum boring contributions would have done most of the heavy lifting for them in their investments. At that point, the only way to catch up is to invest more aggressively and invest way more money in your 30s and 40s, or save a much larger percentage of your income. Meanwhile, someone who started earlier with small contributions can stay relatively relaxed and flexible, and won't have to stress as much about investing later on in life. So what can you do now to not have this happen? Well, the answer to this one is straightforward as it gets. Just start investing now, and figure out how to utilize as many tax advantage accounts and employer matches as you can. But honestly, you don't even need to max out any of your accounts right away. The best thing to do when you're young is just to get invested in the market and stay invested. You need consistency and time. Step 5 to not going broke in your 20s is to not buy into the false narrative that you need a fancy car right away. Cars are one of the fastest ways to accidentally lock yourself into being broke in your 20s. And your boy even fell into this trap. I went out and bought a new car right out of college, and looking back, I would never do that again. While I did pay it off really quick in under 3 years, I could have been investing that money and my net worth would be much higher than it is today. Owning a nicer car can feel like you made it. Owning a nicer car has benefits outside of just financial too. It also provides a peace of mind knowing that your car won't break down on you and you have a reliable vehicle that takes you places. Plus, most people are usually in their vehicles for more than like an hour a day, so why not make it nice? It feels like a reward for working hard. And culturally, it's one of the most visible signs that you're doing well, especially in your 20s. Have you ever seen those dudes whipping around like $70,000 trucks and you're like, damn, they must be rich as fuck? Yeah, that's definitely me. I've said that once or twice. The problem is that cars go down in value immediately once you buy them and are a depreciating asset. And a big car payment early in your career doesn't just cost you money, it costs you financial flexibility. It raises your fixed expenses and forces you to keep earning at a certain level just to stay afloat and get your bills paid off. You have this big payment and a depreciating asset. What makes this worse is how normalized owning fancy cars is in our society. When everyone around you is upgrading their car, it feels like you should be the next one to do so. I still sometimes feel this way because I always have the itch to go upgrade and get that, souped up GMC Sierra. But you just got to have the financial discipline to resist. Go out and buy a used car for like half the cost. I've watched people delay investing, delay moving, delay taking career risks that they actually wanted to take because their car payment, or other big payments for that matter, box them in along with the other 4 steps previously I had already mentioned. So what can you do instead? If you want to upgrade your car, go buy a couple-year-old used and reliable car and you'll just be fine. If you want to buy your financial freedom quicker, buying a new car will hinder that process unless you drastically increase your income, which is the tougher thing to do. Step 6 to going broke in your 20s is to not actually care about your finances. One of the easiest ways to stay broke is to avoid looking at your finances altogether because it's not a priority for you. A lot of people don't check their balances, don't track their spending, and don't really know where their money goes. Not because they're irresponsible, but because looking at the numbers makes them uncomfortable or they just don't want to have to learn about it or worry about it. The problem is that avoidance creates that financial anxiety you may be feeling. When you don't know what's going on, those credit card balances at the end of the month could start to feel stressful, and even unpredicted expenses that pops up feel like a crisis. Most overspending doesn't come from recklessness, it comes from guessing. People assume they're doing just fine until the math proves otherwise. Don't try and avoid the numbers because the math always wins. I didn't take my finances seriously until I was about 23, and I'm glad I did it when I did. That first year out of college at 22, I left a lot of money on the table because I didn't have an HSA, a high yield savings account, a Roth IRA, a brokerage account. I was literally just going la 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 and living life ignoring my finances. So what can you do instead? You can build financial awareness first. And if you are watching this video, then you're on the right track. You just always need to continue to educate yourself through different avenues and build your financial literacy. It's so important and almost never taught in school. Most people just have to figure it out the hard way. You don't need to have a perfect budget or a complicated spreadsheet tracking all your numbers. You just need to know what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left at the end of the day. So to summarize everything I just went over, going broke in your 20s usually isn't caused by one massive mistake. It's the result of a lot of small decisions you make that put you in the wrong direction financially. The good news is that flipping these habits around doesn't require perfection. It requires situational awareness, financial literacy, which you are learning by watching in this video and watching this channel. It requires patience and a willingness to practice delayed gratification. If you're paying attention to this stuff in your 20s, you are going to set yourself ahead by miles. And that gives you the financial freedom later on in life that most people won't have. And that's all I got for this video. So if you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel for more practical personal finance discussions and give this video a like. I'll be posting multiple times a week, so stay tuned. I'll see y'all in the next one.